There was a couple that reported strange things in Bernardo, New Mexico. One of them would end up missing. This is a story about John and Elizabeth. John was a well-known guy. He was well known in Bernardo, New Mexico, as well as a town that was a little more south of that known as Socorro. John was a well-known mechanic. He worked on all things, cars and trucks. He would even work on four-wheelers for people who had them. He was just well-known. He was a real likable guy. People would talk to him. He would talk back. People just knew him. You know, he was that guy who was just real friendly, and he liked to work on stuff. And he actually was fair. You know, he did good work at a fair price. So people knew John. They knew him real well. John was about in his 20s, and he decided to move to Albuquerque because Socorro had good work, but there wasn't that much. You know, it was steady but not busy. He was never overwhelmed with work, and he felt like he could make more money. So John decided to move to Albuquerque, and he was doing pretty good. He was working at a local car dealership here in Albuquerque and just doing good, you know, and he was your average guy. He was only 20-some years old, so he was going to bars and having fun. You know, he liked to go dancing. He liked to just go sit at the bar, go have a few drinks. Occasionally he'd go to the casino. He didn't really like to gamble. He just liked to be social. So he would go out and stuff like that. And one night he was just having a bad day, you know. He was at a bar and he didn't want to dance or nothing. He was just sitting there and he was already done. He had about 5 drinks and he was ready to go home. He didn't want to drink and drive too hard, so he was like, that was a lot already, you know. So he was like, I need to cut it out. He was about to leave, and this red-headed girl, a real beautiful girl, walked up to him and touched his hand, and she started talking to him, and this ended up being Elizabeth. This is how he met Elizabeth. Elizabeth was intrigued with John because John had real oily hands. His hands were real dirty. And she was like, wow, like, are you a mechanic? And he was like, yes, I actually am. And she was real intrigued by it because her father was actually a mechanic and her dad had just passed away. So her seeing that, it kind of reminded her of her dad, you know, in a way. So she was talking to John and she was just like, hey, you know, maybe we should hang out. Maybe you can show me some stuff on cars and stuff like that. Because she really liked John too, you know. She was like, she really liked his personality. And John liked Elizabeth too. It was like love at first sight almost. It was like they had knew each other their whole life growing up when they were kids, and they got separated and then they just like reunited again. Because they just like, they set it off, you know. Like they just knew, like, it's like they knew each other. And so they started hanging out more, and John would show Elizabeth stuff on the cars, you know, and stuff like that. And she was getting, you know, happier and happier, but John would always complain on how he missed home, you know. He was like, because he was already close to 30. He had lived there for a good, you know, 5+ years. And he was like, I want to move back to Bernardo, you know. There's really nothing out there. There's really no one to mess with us. We're kind of like have our own privacy, and then we could build a garage there so I can work on cars, and I'll have clientele from Albuquerque because Albuquerque's only an hour away, and then I'll have clientele from Socorro as well. So he was trying to convince Elizabeth. She was kind of like with